Before sunrise, the mountain rises in complete stillness, wrapped in layers of pale drifting mist that move slowly between the trees and across the worn stone steps, while hundreds of figures form a long continuous line ascending quietly, their footsteps softened by damp moss and earth, the cold air carrying faint traces of incense and melted wax as small points of candlelight flicker gently, creating a soft trembling glow that stretches along the mountain path, blending into the surrounding fog and dim sky. The procession extends further than the eye can follow, a flowing ribbon of dim light winding through the thick forest where branches and leaves fade into shadow and the shapes of trees dissolve into the mist, while the sound of movement becomes subdued and distant, merging into a steady rhythm of footsteps and breathing that echoes softly against the stone surfaces and disappears into the heavy air, leaving the entire space filled with a deep quiet that feels continuous and unbroken. Ancient stone steps, worn uneven by time and weather, rise steadily upward, their surfaces darkened by moisture and covered in thin layers of moss, reflecting faint glimmers of candlelight, while droplets of condensation gather and fall slowly from the edges, and the higher the path continues, the more the surrounding world seems to fade as details blur and the sense of distance disappears, leaving only the immediate presence of stone mist and the gradual upward motion. Thin trails of incense smoke drift upward from unseen hands, curling slowly through the cold air before dissolving into the dense fog, while the faint glow of candle flames sways gently with each movement, creating a shifting pattern of light that appears and disappears along the path, forming a continuous wavering line that stretches through the mountain as if suspended between earth and sky without a clear beginning or end. As the ascent continues, the mist thickens further, surrounding everything in a soft, enveloping veil where outlines lose their clarity and edges dissolve into the air. The forest recedes completely into obscurity, and the space feels enclosed yet open at the same time, as though the mountain exists within its own separate atmosphere, removed from the world below, where sound, light, and movement are softened and slowed. Closer to the summit, the fog begins to shift and thin in gradual layers, allowing faint traces of early morning light to filter through the clouds, casting a muted golden tone across the upper steps, while distant ridges and overlapping mountain silhouettes slowly emerge from the haze, appearing in soft, faded layers that extend far into the horizon and create a sense of vast, quiet depth. At the highest point, the air becomes noticeably clearer and colder as the first rays of sunlight break fully through the remaining mist, illuminating the stone surfaces and touching the gathered forms with a soft, steady glow, while the surrounding clouds begin to drift away, revealing the wide expanse of valleys below, stretching outward in silence with no sharp edges, only gentle transitions of light and shadow. The wind moves lightly across the summit, carrying with it the last traces of incense and the lingering chill of night, while the atmosphere remains calm and undisturbed. The light continues to spread slowly across the landscape, and the mountain settles into a quiet, balanced stillness where mist, stone, sky, and air exist together in a seamless space that feels both distant and immediate at the same time. Beyond the summit, the descending slopes unfold gradually beneath the spreading morning light, where layers of mist continue to drift slowly through the valleys below, forming soft moving patterns that shift with the wind, while distant forests and ridgelines appear and disappear in alternating clarity, the entire landscape stretching outward in muted tones where no single detail dominates and everything blends into a wide, continuous field of quiet presence. The stone path continues downward on the other other side of the peak, its surface still damp and reflective, catching fragments of sunlight that break through the remaining clouds, while small traces of candle wax and faint ash remain scattered along the steps, subtle marks of passage that contrast against the ancient warm texture of the stones as the air begins to warm slightly, yet retains a lingering coolness from the night. Further along the mountain, the forest slowly returns into view as the mist thins, revealing tall trees standing motionless, their leaves heavy with moisture and their trunks darkened by condensation, while occasional drops fall softly to the ground, creating faint, nearly inaudible sounds that merge into the surrounding stillness, and the filtered light passes through the canopy, forming dim, shifting patterns across the earth. In the distance, the valleys open wider, exposing layers of terrain that extend toward the horizon, where low clouds rest gently above the land, appearing almost like a calm, unmoving sea, while the sunlight spreads across these layers in soft gradients, illuminating some areas while leaving others in shadow, creating a quiet balance that feels stable and undisturbed. The sky above gradually clears as the last fragments of fog dissolve into thin strands that drift away, leaving behind a pale expanse of openness where light becomes more defined yet remains soft and diffused, and the transition from night to day completes without sudden change, instead unfolding slowly across the mountain and surrounding landscape in a continuous, seamless motion. Along the slopes, small movements of air continue to pass through, carrying subtle variations in temperature and scent, where traces of earth moisture and fading incense blend together. While the environment remains largely unchanged in its stillness, the mountain holding a sense of quiet continuity that persists even as light increases and visibility expands. Across the entire scene, no single sound rises above another, and no movement disrupts the overall calm. The mountain, the forest, the sky, and the valleys, all existing within the same restrained atmosphere, where each element appears connected through the shared presence of light, air, and silence, forming a space that feels complete without requiring any further change. Far along the lower ridges, the mountain gradually merges with surrounding plains, where the mist settles closer to the ground, forming thin, translucent layers that drift across open spaces, while scattered rocks, patches of grass, and quiet streams begin to appear more clearly under the growing light, each detail emerging slowly without sharp contrast, as if the landscape reveals itself with deliberate restraint. Small paths branch away from the main stone route, winding through the forest and down toward the valleys, their surfaces uneven and softened by years of weather and use, while traces of moisture remain along their edges, reflecting faint glimmers of sunlight, and the quiet atmosphere persists unchanged as the sense of stillness extends beyond the summit into every direction without interruption. Across the distant terrain, low clouds continue to hover just above the land, moving almost imperceptibly as light passes through them, creating subtle variations in brightness, where some areas glow softly while others remain dim and muted, the entire view appearing layered and expansive with no clear boundary between sky and earth, only gradual transitions blending everything together. The forest canopy becomes more defined as the mist recedes, revealing dense clusters of leaves and branches that catch the early light in scattered patterns, while shadows remain soft and diffused beneath the trees, and the air carries a slight warmth that contrasts gently with the lingering coolness of the mountain, creating a balanced and steady atmosphere. Further outward, the horizon stretches wide and uninterrupted, where distant hills fade into pale tones and the sky opens fully above them, the light now consistent yet still gentle, illuminating the entire scene without harshness, while the quiet presence of the mountain remains unchanged, anchoring the landscape in a sense of calm continuity. Along the edges of the valleys, faint lines of water reflect the sky, forming narrow streams that move slowly through the terrain, their surfaces smooth and undisturbed, mirroring the surrounding light and mist, while the overall stillness holds steady, and no single element breaks the uniform calm that defines the entire environment. Across this wide expanse, everything remains in quiet balance, the movement of air, the gradual shift of light, the slow fading of mist, and the steady presence of land, all existing together without urgency, forming a complete and unbroken scene where time seems to extend evenly without emphasis on beginning or end. As the morning continues, the light grows slightly stronger yet remains soft, spreading evenly across the terrain, while the last remaining traces of mist withdraw into lower areas, settling into valleys and shaded corners, the mountain and surrounding landscape now fully visible but still wrapped in a quiet, subdued atmosphere where no movement feels sudden and every transition remains gradual and uninterrupted. The stone surfaces across the slopes begin to dry slowly as moisture evaporates into the warming air, leaving behind a darker texture that contrasts gently with areas still touched by shade, while small details such as cracks, fragments of moss, and uneven edges become more apparent under the steady light, yet none of them disrupt the overall sense of calm that defines the entire space. The stillness persists as leaves hang motionless and branches remain undisturbed, the filtered light creating soft patterns that shift only slightly with the passing air, while the ground below holds a muted tone of earth and fallen leaves, absorbing both light and sound and maintaining the same quiet presence that extends across the mountain. Farther into the distance, the layered hills and ridges settle into clearer forms, though they remain softened by atmospheric haze, creating a gradual fading effect toward the horizon where colors transition from deeper tones in the foreground to pale muted shades in the far distance, reinforcing the sense of depth without introducing sharp contrast or intensity. The sky above becomes more open and uniform, with thin high clouds stretched across its surface, allowing light to pass through evenly while maintaining a gentle diffusion that prevents harsh brightness, and the entire scene continues to exist within this balanced state where illumination and shadow coexist without conflict. Across the valleys, the faint movement of air continues to guide the remaining mist in slow drifting patterns, while the reflective surfaces of small streams and damp ground catch fragments of light, creating subtle highlights that appear and fade without drawing attention, maintaining the overall harmony of the landscape. Through every part of the mountain and its surroundings, the atmosphere remains unchanged in its calmness, where light, air, stone, and vegetation exist together in a steady, quiet equilibrium, forming a scene that feels complete in itself, with no need for further motion or transformation beyond the slow, natural passage of time.